Hello everyone, I hope you're having a blessed Saturday night. Today I'm going to do basically a part 2 of the lesson that I did in my last video. On that one I was showing you a little bit about how to move the capo around to play in all the various keys. And I'm sure you guys are wondering, if you're not super familiar with music, you're going, okay, great, well, how do I know what notes are in a particular key in order to play the chords in the key? So like if I was saying, what are the chords or the notes in the key of B major, how would you know what that is? So today I'm going to show you some easy steps to be able to figure out the notes in any key. Okay, so now I don't edit my videos, get on there and do all this fancy stuff. So I'm going to hold this sheet up and I want you guys to take a picture of it with your phone and then you can print it out or something. But this is basically what we're going to be working on today. So I'll hold that there just for a second. All right. And then I'll move it up to there. And then I'll move it up to here. And up to there. So hopefully you guys will be able to see that. Okay. And if you have any questions with it, you can always email me. I'll leave my email in the description. And I can always send you a copy of this so you can print it out, okay? This is what we'll be working on today. All right, so as I told you in the last lesson, the chromatic scale is one of the most important things because you saw how by doing that, you're going to be able to move that capo around to playing keys. But what are you going to do if you forgot your capo at home? Which happens, right? And now all of a sudden on the fly, the singer's going, oh, I can't sing very well in this key. I need to move it to another key. And then you're panicking going, well, I don't know the chords in that key. Okay, so this is a very easy formula for figuring out the notes in any key. So based on that chromatic scale that I showed you last week, A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp, the formula that you're going to use to figure out the notes in any key is going to be whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step. And what that means is, for instance, on this example, I'm doing just the key of C. So if I take that C note and I go to this chromatic scale up here and I start on the letter C, every note on that chromatic scale would be considered a half step, and then every 2 notes would be considered a whole step. So in this example, the notes in the key of C obviously are C, D, E, F, G, A, and B. And the way that we got those notes is we took the C note on the chromatic scale and we went a whole step away, which would be C sharp to D. That's a whole step. That's how we got the first note. Then we go another whole step and we go D to E. Then we go a half step from E, which would be 1 letter space, which would be E to F. And then we would go a whole step from F, which would be F sharp G. That's a whole step away. And then we go G to A would be a whole step. So we go G, G sharp A. That's a whole step. And then we go one more whole step to the letter B, A sharp B. And then we're back to the root note, which is C. So with that formula, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, you can figure out any of the notes in this thing called the circle of fifths. So you can Google circle of fifths if you want to look at what it looks like. But all that is like going up in fifths on this side, and then you have your flats going on the other side. And, this is a way that you'll be able to figure out the notes in the scale. Then the next part, after you have the notes figured out, okay, and I want you to notice this. Do you see on this part how I have C, D going straight across horizontally? I have C, D, E, F, G, A, B. And notice on the top of each of those letters, I have a number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So those are the orders of the chords in the key. Okay? So last week I was telling you 1, 4, and 5 are major, 2, 3, and 6 are minor, and the 7 is a minor with a flatted fifth. So you're probably going, well, how do we know that? Okay, so this is the next thing on this sheet. It says building the chords out of a key. So for this example, we're using C. So like I said, I wrote them horizontally, C, D, E, F, G, A, B. Then as I'm adding these other notes to make the chord, I'm going this way. So what I'm doing to get those notes after I wrote out the notes up here, see how I wrote them out? Now when you're building chords, all you do is take that scale that you wrote out using that formula I just showed you, and then you're going to skip a note each time, and that's how you're going to build your chords. So when I built that first chord, if you look at these notes, C, E, G, B, that would be a 7th chord, 1, 3, 5, 7. And what I'm doing here is I'm skipping a note each time. So I'm going C to E, E to G, G to B. So that's how I arrived at these notes. Then when I start on the D, I do the same thing. D to F, F to A to C. And you see I have D, A, F, C. So you just keep doing that, starting on every note. You skip a note and then you write the notes. Now, if I kept going, that's how you get your more advanced chords. So these are 1, 3, 5, C, E, G. That'd be your triad. That's the normal chords. If I wanted to include the B note, that would be how I include my 7th. So 1, 3, 5, 7. Now, if I went to the B and I skipped a note, went to the D, and I added the D under there, that would be a 9th. And I would keep going, 11th, 13th, and that would be all of the notes in the key. So that's how you would build a C major 13th chord. Okay, but for this lesson, we're only going to stick on triads. But I did write the 7th note on these in case, so you can see the 7ths. Okay? Now, as I told you last week, like it says, 1, 4, and 5 are major. So in this key, C, F, and G are major. And 2, 3, and 6 are minor, which would be the D minor, E minor, A minor in this key. And then the B is a minor chord, and it has a flatted fifth. So what does all that mean? Okay, what determines whether or not a chord is going to be a major chord or a minor chord is going to be the distance from the root to the third of the chord. Okay, so when I'm playing a C chord, and I'm going to do it all on one line, on one string, because if I do it like this, it's stacked on top of each other. So it's harder to see what we're doing to make it minor or major. Okay, so if I'm on a C note like this, the next note in that chord, which we've already saw, is a E. And we know that it's the E's over here. So how many notes in between do we have? Now, this is also going to be based off the chromatic scale. So if I walk up from this note to this note, how many half steps do I have to do to get to that note based on that chromatic scale? I would go C. You don't count that when you go C sharp. There's a half step. Next note, D. That's another half step. Next note, D sharp. That's 3 half steps. Now I'm at the third. So 4 half steps. So from the root to the third in a major chord is going to be 4 half steps. Okay? Now if I keep going, what is the next note in a C major chord? You see it's C, E, G right here, right? C, E, G. Okay? So we've already figured out that the distance from the root to the third is 4 half steps or 2 whole steps. Okay? Now, if I start on the E and then I walk and I count up using that chromatic scale and I go to the G, how many steps is it to get to that one? So we're on the E, F, that's a half step, F sharp, that's 2 half steps, G. So 3 half steps. So from the 3rd to the 5th is 3 half steps. So every major chord that you're going to have is going to be that formula. When you start on the root of the chord, it's going to be 4 half steps away from the root to the 3rd, and then 3 half steps away from the 3rd to the 5th. So for instance, in this key, the next major chord would be the F. So the distance from F to A would be 4 half steps. So if I was up here on the F and I counted F sharp, G, G sharp, A. There's my 3rd. Okay, so that 4 half steps to the 3rd. So that, what in musical terms, that's called a major interval. Okay, so you can look at it as 4 half steps or 2 whole steps from the root to the 3rd. Okay, now when I go from the 3rd to the 5th, based on that chord, on the F, A to C, we're going to be on the A. We're going to count A sharp, B, C. So there's 3 half steps. So from the 3rd to the 5th is 1.5 steps or 3 half steps, which is called a minor interval. Okay, so 2 whole steps is a major interval, and then 1.5 steps or 3 half steps is a minor interval. So the way you build a major chord, the root to the 3rd is a major third, major interval, and from the 3rd to the 5th is a minor interval. Okay, 1.5 steps. It's opposite on a minor chord. Okay, let's look at the minor now. So the minor chord in C would be the D, because I told you 2, 3, and 6 are minor, and this is why. If I look at a D now and I go, what is the distance from the D to an F? Okay, let's start on a D. Now let's walk it up based on the chromatic scale. Ready? D, D sharp, E, F. There's my 3rd. So that's why it's a minor chord, because I have only 3 half steps or 1 whole step and a half step. If it was a major chord, it would be here, which would be 4 half steps or 2. So what we did to make it minor is we flatted the 3rd. That's what it's called. See that? So we made it only 1.5 steps. So now if I start on the F and I go to the next note on the minor chord, it's an A. So the distance from the F to the A, let's count it off. F, okay, F sharp, there's 1. G, that's 2. G sharp, that's 3. There's my A. So the distance from F to A is 4 half steps or 2 whole steps, which is a major interval. So a minor chord is a minor interval, 1.5 steps or 3 half steps. And the 3rd to the 5th is a major interval, which is 4 half steps or 2 whole steps. And it's reversed on a major chord, okay? We have, on a major chord from the root to the 3rd, we have 4 half steps or 2 whole steps. And from the 3rd to the 5th, we have a minor interval, which is 1.5 steps or 3 half steps. Okay, so that's how you figure out the chords in the key, whether they're going to be minor or major. Now, when we get to that 7th chord, like I told you last week, notice we have a B to a D. Okay, so let's look at that one. We start on the B. Now let's count. B, C, C sharp, D. So what do we have? 3 half steps or 1 whole step and a half step, which would be a minor interval, right? Now, normally on our minor chords, like I told you, we normally have now a major interval following it from the 3rd to the 5th, which would be 4 half steps and 2 whole steps. But let's look what we have here. B, D, the next note would be F. So what is the distance now from D to F. D, D sharp, E, F. 3. So you notice the distance from the B to the D was 3 half steps, and the distance from the D to the F, the third to the fifth, is also 3 half steps. So a minor, a B half diminished is what they call it, or a minor chord with a flatted fifth. Because remember, on a normal minor chord, the interval distance is a major, but on this particular chord, it's flatted a third. That's why they call it a flat 5. Okay? So the distance from here to here, 3 half steps, that's a minor interval. And the distance from here to here is also a minor interval. So that's what a diminished chord is. It's a minor interval followed by a minor interval. A minor chord is a minor interval followed by a major interval. And a major chord is a major interval from 1 to 3 and a minor interval from 3 to 5. So that's how you build your chords. And that's what this sheet tells you. Now, here's where it gets cool. So, let's say we're playing Goodness of God, right? It's in the key of G. Well, they capable, but for this example, we'll use the key of G. I love you, Lord. Okay, so how would we transpose that into a different key? This is where the Nashville number system comes into play. Some people just call it the number system, but down in Nashville, they call it the Nashville number system. And everybody utilizes this. Like I could show you a video when Brooke was making one of her songs. What was the name of that song? Bless God. I think it's called Bless God. Anyways, if you go to that video when it shows her in the studio, look at the keyboard player and pause that video, and you'll see on his keyboard, he literally has the number system written out. He has the key, what key they're going to be in, and then just numbers of the chords. So, if we were going to now play in the key of G major, okay? The first thing we would do if you don't know the notes in G major is, what would you do? You would take the G, and then you would use that formula that I showed you based off the chromatic scale. You'd write a G down on a piece of paper, and then you would go whole, whole, half, whole, 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 and you would figure out the notes. So, I'll write this really quick on the back, and I'll just show you. Just hold on, let me write this for you. So G to A is a whole, A to B is a whole, B to C is a half, C to D is a whole, D to E is a whole, and then E to F sharp is a whole. So, in the key of G major, sorry about my handwriting, but you have G, A, B, C, D, E, and the only note different in this key compared to the C major scale is now you have an F sharp instead of an F. So it's going to change some of these chords from major to minor chords, obviously, because we raise the F up a half step. That's what sharping a chord means. Okay, so in Goodness of God, we start out with a G. Now remember, once you figure out the notes in the scale by using that whole step, half, whole, 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 now put your numbers above the chords. And all you're doing is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So see how I have my numbers above my chords? So now, when I have my actual chord chart in front of me that has the chords, so it would be the verse. Let me just write verse so you can see. So, in the verse, it's going to go G, I love you, Lord, that thy mercy never fails me. And then goes, all my life, I am done. Okay, so those are the notes in the key. I mean, in the verse. G, C, back to G, to E minor, to C, to D. So you would look up here and you would say, okay, that's the 1 chord, right? That's the 4 chord. That's the 1 chord. The E minor is the 6. The C is the 4. And the D is the 5. So you'd write your numbers above those chords in the verse. So let's say now they go, oh, I need to move it to the key of D major. Or we'll use C major for this one, okay? So what would you do? You'd write out and you'd figure out the notes in the key of C major by using that formula based off of that chromatic scale. And then once you have those written out, you put your numbers above them, and now you just transpose. You say, okay, well, here's my chord chart. Let's say you had your chord chart in front of you, for goodness of God, and now we're moving it from the key of G to the key of C. All you would have to do now, here I'll write the numbers above these. 1, I'll write them below so you can see them. 1, 4, back to the 1, back to the 6, to the 4, and to the 5. Okay. So those would be your numbers on your number system, 1, 4, 1, 6, 4, and 5. So now all I got to do is go over here and go 1, 1, 4, 1, 6, 4, 5. And those would be the new chords that I'm going to use to play that same song in the key of C. Okay? So that's how the Nashville number system works, which is really cool and convenient, because by using this formula right here, you can figure out any key. If I wanted to move it to the key of E major, all I have to do is write down the E and then use this. Based on this, I would go E, a whole step from E would be E to F sharp, and then a whole step from F sharp would be F sharp to G sharp. A half step from G sharp would be G sharp to A. A whole step from A would be A to B. A whole step from B would be B to C sharp. And a whole step from C sharp would be C sharp to D sharp. And then we're back to E again. So that's how you figure out the notes. You would write your numbers on the top of those. And then you could transpose by picking out the 1 chord, the 4 chord, the 1 chord, the 6 chord, and so on. So that's how you use the number system. All right, so that is that. Now let me show you one other thing. This is really cool. So the cage system, I was talking about that on the last lesson. The cage system's really cool. Like I showed you, using the capo, you can move those chords around and it turns them into something else. Like, you know, if I'm playing a C chord, I'll play it like this. You know, well, if I moved it up here and then I stuck the capo down, it would be now a D chord. But you can also do it with your fingers like that. Right? You see the C shape, but I'm using my finger as the capo. So that would be a D chord using a C shape. Okay, so let's look at a G chord. So G chord, you know, most people play it like that. But if you're going to use it in the cage system, you would look at it like this. So these 2 notes I'm holding, and then I have open strings. So for the heck of it, I'm going to bar my finger over here on the nut. Because even though they're open, it's going to look like this. Like if I moved it up to A, it would look like this. And then the high note. But most people don't play the high note, like, because otherwise it would look like that. So most people just play it like this. And don't hit the high one. Okay, so that's what you see right here. So that's playing a G chord using a G shape. Now if I bass, there's my bass note. I can also play my G chord like this. Now what shape do you see right here? That's an E major chord, see that? So what I did was I walked it up using that chromatic scale, E, F, F sharp, G, and now I'm playing a G chord using an E major shape. Okay, so we had our G shape right here, our E shape. Now, from here, we're going to go to our root note, which is going to be right here. That's our octave, G, G, G. And now we're going to build the D major chord. Okay. Now it looks strange because we have the open string, but I'm going to bar like this so you can see it. So if I was playing it like that, acting like my finger's the nut, that's what it looks like. So if I start moving this up like this, that's the D shape. So based on my root right here, if I play the D chord right here, this is your G, there's the D shape, but I'm going to add the bass note. Now most people play it like this, and they don't add this one. I mean, you can go like this. So that's a G chord using a D shape, okay? So you see the D major chord, and then I'm just holding this note down. Okay, now the next chord is going to be the C major shape playing a G. So just like when we play a C up here, our bass note is the C. Now we need to have the G as our bass note. So if you wanted to walk it up, you would go C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G. So this is where we're going to play our C chord right here. So you're going to play it like that, and then you're just going to bar. Right here. So do you see the C chord right here? This is my C chord, and this is where you would normally put your capo. But if you weren't using the capo, this is how you would play a C shape as a G chord. Okay, now there's only one left. We've already done the G. We have C, A, G, E, D. Those are the shapes. We've already done the C. We skipped over the A. I should have done them in order, but I'm doing them as I'm walking them up the neck. That's why they're not in order as C, A, G, E, D shape. So the only other shape we have left now is the A shape, this one. Okay, so we would walk it up. We'd go A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G. So we're going to bar there, and then we're going to play the A right here. Now I'm barring it with one finger. I mean, if you squeezed them all in there, it would look like that. See that? But when the frets get tiny, you just bar like this. So that's a G chord using an A shape. So you got it? So here, again, that's the G shape, right? E shape. Then we go to the D shape. Then we go to the C shape right here. And the A shape. And then it repeats. Meaning if you could get your fingers up here, you're back to your G chord right here, and then you'd bar right here. Okay, it's hard to get in there though. But that's your G chord up here. Okay, so those are your shapes and how they work and how they move around the fretboard, which is really cool. I mean, because when you learn that, it really helps you visualize the fretboard, because then you're not stuck all the time. When you see G on your chord chart, you don't have to go always to the G chord there. You can go, you know, here. You can go here. I can go here. I can go here. Here's the A shape. I can go like this. So you can do extensions off the chords, meaning I'm looking at my A shape and I'm going, well, if I want to take it up higher, instead of barring here, I can move that finger there, and then I just add these notes up here, which I'm borrowing from another part of another G chord. So that's a little bit how you build chords, how you use that formula to figure out any notes in the key, why they're major, why they're minor. Oh, and let me just show you real quick, like you might be going, well, where am I going to use a diminished chord? Okay, check this out. So you know that song Never Lost by Elevation Worship? Miracles when you move right, such an easy thing for you to do. And your hand is moving right now, right? You are still showing up at the tomb of every Lazarus, and your voice is calling me out, right? And right now, I know you're able, and my God will come through again. Okay, so in this song, when he gets to the chorus, on the second chorus, they use the diminished chord like this. They go, you can do, right, to that chord, all things. You can do all things but fail. But I've never lost a battle, right? And then he goes to that. But I never lost a battle. And he goes, and I know, and you never will. Now he uses the diminished right here, look. You can do, right here. Oh, hold on. Where's he do? You can do. There it is right there. Minor 7, flat 5. So he's going, you can do all, and then he uses this cool chord. I love that. You can do all things. You can do all things but fail. 'Cause you never lost a battle. Never lost a battle. And I know, you never will. All right, so there you go. That's where you would use diminished. So, as always, if you have any questions, reach out to me. If you'd like an actual physical copy of this, let me know. I'll send it to you. I have in-depth music theory things that I wrote out, which is super, super complete, where it takes this a step further. It'll show you how to play seventh chords, which I have on here, and how do you know whether it's a major 7, a minor 7, an augmented 7, a diminished 7th, a dominant 7, whatever you want to call them. Like, how do you know what those are? So I have sheets that will teach you that too. If you want them, let me know and I'll send them to you. Usually in worship music, I usually don't take it further than maybe a 9th chord, because, you know, in worship music, you see 9th chords. You see, like, you know, C add 9. Like that. So you're going to see 9th chords. You know, you're going to see 2 chords like this. So, you see some variations of chords, but usually not too much above a ninth chord. I mean, you'll see this D chord, it's a C slid up, where he's adding like the 11th. He's adding the 9th and the 11th, so, but most people just call that a D because they don't understand what it's called. Okay, so in my next lesson, what I'm going to show you is some basic finger picking patterns that are common in worship music. So I'm not going to take you through intricate ones like Travis picking, that's more advanced. I'm going to show you common ones that you'll see, I'll give you a little teaser. Like you see Brandon Lake doing all the time, where he's doing gratitude, where he's going. Like that. So that's a common one in worship. Then you have, even though it's in 6/8, I call it like 5. Death was arrested. So it sounds like that, but it's only 5. So we'll work on that next time. And then I'll show you how to simplify playing chords so you're not moving around so much. You don't want to play a G and then move your hand like that, when you can, do variations of chords with little movement like this. So we'll touch on things like that. All right? God bless you guys. As always, glorify God with your gifts and talents.